Hello and welcome to another video review from AVForums. I'm Phil Hinton and I've been the editor since 2003. I'm also a fully trained and qualified THX and ISF professional calibrator with 18 years of experience. In today's short video we have our review of the Hisense A7G QLED TV. Before we talk about the performance of the Hisense A7G, if you like our reviews and want to see more of them while supporting our channel, then please like and subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell to be informed every time we upload new video content. You can also find a link to our Patreon in the video description, and also don't forget to check out the TV forums at Europe's largest AV community on AVForums to see what owners of this TV think about it after normal use in their own homes. We publish our in-depth TV reviews, which include measurements and calibration results, first on AVForums, usually a little while before our YouTube videos, so make sure you head over to check them out as they contain even more in-depth calibration details and testing. We reviewed the Hisense A7G in June 2021. The Hisense A7G is a QLED LCD TV that sits in the middle of the range for 2021, and it has a number of features you would expect to only see on higher end models. It is priced at £650 for the 50-inch screen that we are reviewing at the time of this review in June 2021. There are other screen sizes available from 55, 65 and 75 inches, and these larger sizes all use an IPS LCD panel. The 50-inch we're reviewing here has a VA style 60Hz panel. It does have a direct LED backlight with no local dimming or zones, and it features HDR10, HDR10+, HLG hybrid log gamma and Dolby Vision for high dynamic range playback, but this is limited to the peak brightness of the actual TV, which is around 240 to 250 nits. The A7G is a QLED TV with quantum dot technology built into the panel to give purer looking colours, although it doesn't quite reach the full width of the DCI-P3 colour gamut for HDR. Instead, Hisense states around 90% coverage. Other features include an AI picture processing for upscaling, and Dolby Atmos support for immersive audio is also built in, though the TV obviously only has 2 speakers. The TV also features Hisense's proprietary smart TV system, VIDAA U5.0, as well as Freeview Play for all the UK terrestrial catch-up apps and services. The VIDAA system is intuitive to use, and it runs at a decent speed from button press to app opening and playing. Plus there is Netflix, Prime Video and YouTube in 4K HDR. There's also content discovery along with a one button press on the remote which opens up various apps, and there is also compatibility with Alexa for voice commands. The design is good, but with a plastic feel to the build quality. The body of the unit is also nice with a gunmetal style finish that looks a lot more expensive than it actually is. The loop stand is also well designed and easy to attach, with some cable management also built into the rear facing legs, with everything looking tidy from the front of the TV. Around the back we have the connections, which are sideways and rearwards facing, with a USB 3.0 port, 3.5mm headphone jack, a service port, breakout jack for legacy video connections, and 3 HDMI 2.0 ports facing sideways, along with an RF and satellite antennas and a further USB 2.0 port. Rearwards is a LAN and digital audio output, and the HDMI ports read back as 2.0, but they do support some HDMI 2.1 features such as eARC and ALLM auto low latency mode, plus Hisense claim there is VRR support at 48 to 60 Hz. The supplied remote control is a traditional long plastic affair with buttons all laid out in a logical manner. There are easy to use menu and directional keys, as well as a direct one press access to apps such as Freeview Play, Netflix and Prime Video, to name 3. The remote sits neatly in the hand and it's easy to use. We go into far more detail within the written review when it comes to the measurements, but for the sake of this video, the out-of-the-box grayscale performance was reasonable, with a few small errors. Colour was also good to the Rec 709 colour gamut, with just a few small errors visible, mainly with the hue tracking of green. There are calibration controls available within the menu system, and this allowed us to dial in the grayscale and also improve the Rec 709 HD colour gamut results. While the Hisense A7G is compatible with HDR10, HDR10+, hybrid log gamma and Dolby Vision flavours of HDR, it's not really bright enough to really display HDR at its best. As you can see in the most accurate picture mode to D65 white, which is HDR night in the picture presets, the A7G is also capable of 250 nits with all window sizes. This is what we'd expect to see at this end of the market, and it means that the HDR picture performance, even in Dolby Vision, will only have a peak brightness of 250 nits before it clips all the detail in the brighter reaches of the image. We go into far more detail about this and the HDR performance in the written review at AVForums.com. The 50-inch A7G we are reviewing has a VA 60Hz panel which has a measured black level of 0.05 nits and a peak brightness of 240 nits, giving it an on-off contrast of 4800 to 1. It has a direct LED backlight but with no local dimming. It's a global system, and as such the panel is a little bit deeper than an edge-lit TV. Panel uniformity was reasonable, with a darker centre and lighter edges. With some content, it was easy to make out the lighter sides and the bottom edge when sitting even directly onto the panel. With a 5% slide, the edges were again slightly darker than the centre. Apart from this, the panel was clean with no obvious dirty screen effect or banding. Viewing angles were a downside on the A7G, which is important if you're going to be using the TV in a normal living room with seating that is off to the sides. We found that just being 20 degrees off centre introduced gamma and colour shift, with the screen washing out quickly the further you moved off axis. Sitting straight onto the screen, the image quality was very good, so the positioning of seating will be important with this 50-inch model. Motion was also reasonably good, with 24 frames per second material looking decent for the most part, with only the occasional judder noticeable with ultra smooth motion switched off. 50Hz broadcast content also looked fair with the majority of the content we viewed, and this again was with ultra smooth motion switched off. We did notice some trailing effects on moving objects with action scenes or fast moving sports. Out of the box, SDR Image Quality in the Cinema Night preset mode did look very accurate to the eye, with decent natural looking colours and lifelike skin tones. Blacks were good when viewed in a well-lit room, with just some slight crash being visible in darker scenes. In dim viewing conditions, the black levels were satisfactory, but with some noticeable lighter edges to the panel, and even if slightly off axis, these blacks started to look milky and navy, so it lost the deep black look. The lack of absolute contrast is more obvious when viewing in dim surroundings, and black crash is also more noticeable with tricky scenes like the opening of John Wick Chapter 3, where backgrounds completely lose shadow detail in the darker parts of the image. This TV is better suited to normal living room viewing conditions with some ambient lighting or bias lighting to the rear of the panel, where issues are not as noticeable. The A7G was at its strongest when it was used as an everyday TV in a well-lit or bright room and not a display for critical movie viewing in the dark. HDR certainly was a struggle for the A7G with its lack of peak brightness and no local dimming. Dolby Vision was the best performer of all the HDR flavours available, as the dynamic metadata approach allowed more visible specular highlights and better midtones, which added more depth to the image. But it still struggles to give the A7G any dynamic pop that you sometimes get from more brighter screens. It will play back HDR content, but it does so with limited dynamic range in terms of image brightness. However, the wide colour gamut performance was good. Colours do continue to look natural and lifelike in the HDR Night preset, with skin tones also appearing as they should, but the sheer lack of brightness does dampen down the overall HDR experience. However, we don't know many screens at this price point that would go brighter than the A7G. So the Hisense is not a TV aimed at the enthusiast market, and that's not really a bad thing at all. As a mid-range LCD TV with an LED backlight and quantum dot technology, it provides decent looking image quality for everyday TV viewing. It has worthy gaming capabilities, and it can also play back most HDR standards to a satisfactory level. The Smart TV system is also up to scratch with a good selection of apps, and this set would be perfectly suited to a kitchen or bedroom role within most homes. In terms of gaming, we measure the input lag at 4K 60Hz as 14 milliseconds, which is fast enough for almost all gamers out there. You can find out a lot more detail about the Hisense A7G in my full written review at AVForums, when we go into more detail with full measurements and test results. Thanks for watching.